Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again on another episode of Leading on Monday. My name is Florin Lungu, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And I'm joined by my friend and colleague at Maxwell Leadership, Madalina Guinness. Welcome, Madalina.
Hello, Florin. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today.
Absolutely, pleasure is mine. So, what we're gonna be the topic for today? I think people already see that on the banner, but tell us a little bit about the topic for today.
Yes, today I would like to discuss with you and, of course, ask you some serious questions that listeners usually ask us related to unconscious bias. Because we know that every day we have this policy, written policy, that we shouldn't do that, or we shouldn't say that, or we shouldn't discuss that kind of, let's say, or say that kind of joke to somebody. But we are not aware of the unconscious bias. And I would like to ask you more questions about it, if that's okay with you, Florin.
Absolutely, absolutely, shoot.
Good. First of all, what can you tell us as a definition of unconscious bias? What is unconscious bias?
Yeah, so the best definition actually that we can get for unconscious bias is automatic thoughts or ideas or judgments or prejudice that we have about someone or something or a situation. And this is actually, you actually make a really good distinction between the things that we consciously know that we shouldn't do, like we shouldn't say this to someone, or shouldn't make racist jokes at home or at work or anywhere, right? But there is one thing about the things that we say. We might not say things, but we think things. So, for
Mm,
example, how that shows up, it's the first reaction. Malcolm Gladwell calls this blink, like you make a judgment in a blink of eye. He says that just walking through an airport and seeing people that you meet on that towards your gate, we make snap judgments. By the way they look, color
yeah,
scheme,
yeah.
baggage, clothing, accessories, stuff, all that we see on the outside, we make a judgment, right? And sometimes we judge, oh, this might be a poor person because of the clothing they wear, or this might be a rich person because of, again, the clothing, accessories, and watch, whatever. And those are unconscious biases. Those are unconscious judgments that we make. Have you ever been in a situation where you have not been admitted in a store or in a hotel just because you were dressed in a certain way, and they assume that you're not able to buy the things that they were selling?
Actually, it didn't happen to me, but I heard a story about somebody by accident, I think. They wanted, well, they were in a supermarket, in a big store. I'm not going to say the name. And they were two women dressed very, very casual with t-shirt, maybe some shirts, something like that. And nobody helped them. And nobody, like the employees of that supermarket, they weren't that, let's say, friendly and very helpful for them. And they were so like, okay, what is this? So because of how we are wearing, what we are wearing, okay. And they said that next time they really dressed up, they look very fancy. The two of them look very fancy and entered the store again. And guess what? Not one, but many employees were right next to them, trying to help them to decide what to buy and things like that. And that was, I can definitely tell that it's an unconscious bias. And I can actually think of some other example. It's an often joke in movies, if you know, when, especially in the airport, when you see somebody like a Muslim or an Arabic person, they really assume that they have something to do with some attacks, right? It's not what they are, but what they represent. So this is the joke in movies. Why are you picking up on me because I'm black, or because I'm Muslim, or because I'm whatever other name you can say? So yes, not it didn't happen to me, but I heard the different stories of people with unconscious bias. Yeah.
And think about how easy this could could be, like how easy this kind of behavior presents itself even in the workplace. Like uh, things like, who do we recruit, for example, right? So there are a number of unconscious biases, right,
Yeah.
towards almost anything, like towards gender, towards affinity, like if we connect or if we don't connect. And so many hiring managers and recruiting managers actually make decisions based on if we connected or not during the interview. But that doesn't say anything about my ability to do the job and how well I'm going to work together with the team,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what companies are doing, they're putting, when they have a goal for diversity in recruiting, or they have a goal for how many women should they have on the team, like, gender split, they are trying to actually overcome these biases, because otherwise naturally we're going to recruit people that are just like us.
Yeah.
We're going to look at someone which is young, and maybe we say, well, they must not have experience, they're too young. We look at someone which is maybe um, more experienced, right? And they're aged, and say, well, okay, so I don't know, maybe he or she, they just want to retire. And we kind of put these labels on people. And so
Hmm.
think about how damaging is this kind of behavior in the workplace, when we have someone on the team that we just put a label on, just because my experience with people like that told me, right, and taught me that this is the way people are, like your example you just gave. So we have our baggage of experience that have led us to today, and now if we're not conscious, we're going to have these thoughts about people. So the first
Hmm.
reaction we have, that's what we call this unconscious bias. And then we have to think consciously, say, oh, this is not okay for me to say, or this is not okay for me to do. But still, we have that thought. And there are
Yeah.
moments when we don't realize the thought,
Hmm.
and we let that
That's why
actually
it's
drive the behavior that we're having towards the person.
so that's why it's called unconscious bias, because you are unconscious, are unaware of this. And I think I can say that I had this unconscious bias. I can definitely tell you. I don't know exactly when, but I know it was a funny story at some point. It's not like unconscious bias, but something that triggered me when I had my first day at my job. I met a lot of people. Of course, it was before pandemic, so we were everybody was out at the office, and I was actually meeting a colleague, and he was so friendly and so open to discuss that I thought it was like a regular, the same position as me. And afterwards, I found out that actually he was a manager. I said, "Oh my God." I was so friendly with the manager, and I wasn't sure if that was a good idea to the way I behaved. But I found out later that he's very open to this relationship. It's not like he's here on the pedestal and the other ones are here on the bottom of the pyramid. So in this situation, I actually created the unconscious bias in my head that because he was so friendly, he was like on the same level as me in the workplace, and vice versa. If you can think about what is the opposite of this, I was thinking that the managers, usually I think that managers or directors or big CEOs, they are here on a pedestal and they don't talk the way, like a normal way, with everybody in the team. So that's an unconscious bias. But I'm
Absolutely.
curious, Florin, if you can tell us some other examples. Do you have some other maybe situations where people may not think that they have unconscious bias, but they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely ages, it's one thing, but also gender. So the
Okay.
reason why it's much easier for you to connect with another woman is because you probably have some more things in common than the two of us have. And so it's natural for us to, when we talk about, discrimination at work, we don't really name it that way, and we don't really put the finger of what a problem is. But many times, you know if I have the perception that, from my experience, women are not as good as men in leadership positions. What I'm going to do unconsciously, I'm going to promote or look at men in a different way, even if I don't say anything to the women, because we have policies. And if I do say something, I know I'm going to be suited, or I'm going to have problems. But it's not about what we say, it's about what we think and
Think.
what drives our behavior. So,
Mm,
in other words, like, is it easier for me to connect with another man, or to connect with another white man, white male my age? Absolutely, we might have things in common, right? But how difficult is it to me, for me to connect with maybe um, a more experienced, women, someone that
mhm,
has been a CEO and led companies for years, and she might be in her 60s, right? Definitely I have many things to learn from her, but it's difficult for me to connect. I don't know how has it been for her to be able to get in that position, how many
mm,
difficulties she needed to overcome to get there, right?
mhm,
Other
mhm,
type of
mhm.
unconscious bias is like, I'm an immigrant in now living in Denmark, working in Denmark and Sweden. Now, for someone that has never left a country, and I say, and I'm not sure, my Swedish friends just forget me for this, but sorry, forgive me for this, but I say that Western Europeans are actually privileged, because when they travel abroad, for example, when Swedes travel abroad, they're seen like, the good type of tourists. When Romanian travel abroad, we're associated with gypsies, right? And we're seen like bad type of tourists, right?
Yeah,
So so unconscious bias again there, because of
yeah.
their experience with other Romanians, right? Now they
It's a bad.
project that on us. So if someone that, if I meet someone and they never travel abroad, they never had to move homes, to move countries, to apply for a job in another country, to speak another language that they don't understand, for them, of course, it will be easy to have an unconscious bias about what it is to be an international in Sweden or Denmark. They don't know what that is, right?
Mhm.
So it's very, and for me, I will have an unconscious bias towards people that been through this experience. Hey, if someone was able to leave their country, find another job, open a business, find a housing in Sweden, well, they must be good, right? They might be able to actually do the work that we need them to do. So it tells a lot about the person. So I
Yeah.
might be, you know bias towards that immigrant or that kind of person that been through the same experience like me, for those reasons, because I have an experience there. So these are other type of biases that definitely show up at work and in our lives.
Mhm. I can say one more thing I can add to this one as an unconscious bias, and it's related to me as a woman and other women. Usually, they have this unconscious bias by somebody else when other people are thinking about them when they will have a child. So you can, this is like with the story with the egg and the chicken, who was first. Yeah, what is the issue with that one? Related to if we should hire this woman or not, when are you going to have a child, because if you are going to have, then you will stay at home and things like that. So it's a very very long story with this one, and a longer discussion on that one, and I don't want to continue this one now. But we can also think about the unconscious bias related to women as the child barrier. I think I said it
Yeah,
right in
yeah,
English.
yep,
Sorry,
that's
it's not
right,
my native language.
that's right.
So yeah, the women who have children, then it's a problem in the workplace, because people will think that they are not as efficient as they should be. But let me go on with the next question related to this unconscious bias, because it's unconscious. How can we deal with this? We as leaders, we as employees, we as people in general, how can we deal with this?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it starts with awareness, like, just talking about conscious biases. There is a project that I found really interesting. It's called the Implicit Project at Harvard University. So this is a research project where you could go online and you could take one of these assessments, and you could see if you have an unconscious bias towards, there are different kind of assessments. So I took the one, the color, the skin color, the race assessment, and it turned out that I have, an affinity towards, white male. This is, you
Okay.
would say, well, this is natural. Of course, it's natural, but um, it's based on my experience. So, and they ask you questions. Is as actually there are questions and then there are pictures. So they want you to see how fast can you associate, for example, positive traits with black people compared to how fast can you associate. So you have, traits, you say, kind, and you know playful or whatever, right? So these are traits, and then you have pictures, so you have to associate those two. And so they trace how fast can you make the association between positive words and reinforcing words and white people, and positive words and black people. And in my case is that I have a slight bias towards, uh, white people, of course. I'm saying
Because
of
we
course.
know we we know how to be, right? Because we are like that and we
Yeah,
relate to that.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And there is actually, they put it this way. So we have an in group and we have an
Mhm.
out of group, right? So in group is white people, right? The two of us are in the same in group.
Yeah.
Everyone which is not white, it's part of, it's out of this group. Then we have the
Okay.
women group, and you are part of that. I'm not part of that. We have the
Okay.
men group that I'm part of it, right? So we are part of different groups, and everything which is outside of those groups are things usually that we're not so familiar with. So because I don't
Exactly.
have experiences with black people, and in Romania we are mostly white, then I have not been exposed to black people a lot. So then I we tend to kind of judge things that we don't know. And because I don't know, and because I don't have the time, or I don't take the time to learn about those people, about those religions, about those beliefs, about those other things, then what happens is that I have a bias. I just make a judgment based on media, on news, whatever I allow to enter my mind. I make a judgment. So if we're not aware in the workplace, this judgment, we carry these judgments with us all the time. So the first thing as a leader, we need to speak about them. Maybe even, invite our people to take one of these assessments and see, do they have a tendency towards, implicitly associating, bad things with a certain gender or a certain race, or good things with a certain gender or certain race. So that way, we know at least that there are some things that run unconsciously and that might affect our decisions, because no one wants to make decisions which are against someone or discriminating decisions. But if we're not aware, we might do them unconsciously.
Hmm. Wow. So we have this assessment from
Harvard
that
University.
link where we can test ourselves and see
Yeah,
if
we
we
have a
have.
link. I think I can share the link. Absolutely, I can find the link and share it. Yes, absolutely, where we could assess ourselves and take that assessment and see how we rate when it comes to implicit bias. But the first thing is just for us to be aware, right, and to know
Yeah.
about this, right. And
Yeah.
secondly is as a leader to look at, you know when we see something that might be the result of that, that's when there is an opportunity for us to have a conversation and say, hey, I noticed, your reaction towards when we propose to have, Madalina as a leader, right?
Why
So
and not
what
somebody
what
else?
exactly what drives that, right? And so it's very difficult as a leader to have those kinds of conversations. But unless we're able to do that, this is against our policies. And if we know that there is an unconscious factor that will maybe lead us to make a mistake or to favorize someone that we know might not be the best person, or to hire someone that we know
Yes.
might not serve the team, then it's our duty as leaders to really, have those kind of conversations with our team and make sure that we try to bring some awareness about this.
Mhm. I actually wanted to discuss about this one to shortly let us say this, because we as human beings would like to stay together with people that we connect better. So in these situations, also leaders might do the same thing. They want to work with specific persons, people, because they connect better with them. And if they just look at the skills of each person, maybe another person will be even better, as is a more suitable person for the position, but we don't choose that person because we would like to work with another person. So in this situation, first of all, like you said, be aware what is unconscious bias. First of all, have the definition very clear in your head. Make sure that you find yourself when you are doing you become aware of yourself when you are doing the unconscious bias. And another point would be, like you said, to be more around different kind of people, so then you get to know them better, and then it will reduce the unconscious bias in your mind, like an assumption that usually people do based on the lack of experience. And I would like to have another question for you, Florin. What can leaders do to guard themselves and their team against the effects of unconscious bias at work?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think we just mentioned, first of all, being aware, right? So even having education, training around the conscious bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
And talking about the different type of unconscious bias, and apply that to your specific team, to your specific organization. And if gender is one of these unconscious bias, then talk about that, right? Talk about ageism, talk about racism, talk about, affinity, as you mentioned, that we naturally tend to work with people like us. And if I'm a leader and I have two or three people that I connect better with, and I see this with leaders all the time. They have 7 or 8 people on their team, different personalities, and they have one or two which are, closer, personality wise with the profile of the leader. And the leader, kind of unconsciously or sometimes consciously, I really like to work with these two people. And what does it mean for the other, people on your team, right?
Mm.
So just first of all, be aware of how do we choose the people on our team. Be aware of how do we choose the people to work on our projects, right? Based on what? And are those criterias the criterias for performance, or are those criteria maybe your criteria for how easy it would be for you to work with someone? Of course, if you
That's
want
it.
to work with someone that it's a completely different personality style on your team, and that also it's a type of unconscious bias towards personality. We tend to work with people that we connect with, and it's easier for us to connect with people like us. If I'm an outgoing positive person, well, it will be easy for me to connect with an outgoing positive person. But it will be very difficult for me to connect with someone which is more, you know um, introvert and very detail and data oriented. When I'm going to make a statement, they will look for, do you have any proof for that, right? Is that proof by any research, or, and I don't
Yeah.
want to provide that all the research for them, right? So in other words, it will be much more difficult for me to have things in common and to discuss and connect with that kind of person than with someone like me. So naturally I'll say, well, when they ask me who do you want on your project, I will choose the people that are like me. The challenge is
Mhm.
that if I create a team only of Florins, we're gonna have a lot of blind spots because we all have the same skills, the same strengths, but also the same blind spots. So we're gonna need someone to check the things, and have keep the deadline and keep the timeline and everything. But that me working with that person might not come naturally to me. So I need to force myself to consciously think and look at, how am I making decisions about my team? How are we making decisions about who to promote? How are we making decisions about who to maybe send on this next expedition or next business trip? And all these kind of decisions that, we don't talk about a huge decision, but even small decisions, over time, they have a compound effect, and they either close that gap or widen that gap.
Mm. Wow, well put. I really like this topic, and I think we can find so many other questions and topics on this one. But I think it's enough for today, because I think we already mentioned what is the most important things for leaders to do. So I would just add experience, 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 because maybe at the beginning it won't be very easy for anybody to be aware of the unconscious bias they have, and also to correct the behavior. And maybe I have another idea, maybe in some decisions making that you already mentioned, maybe to take somebody else next to you, somebody which is outside of the situation, the context. They don't know anything about anybody. They don't connect with anybody related to that decision, and then they can give you a very honest and objective opinion of what they think it would be the right decision. Of course, that's an advice, not as something that you should do, because it might be something you can remember. So in this situation, take somebody from outside to help you with making the decision, and of course, being around many other people, all kinds of people. And from what you said, I really think about the one of the growth laws that Maxwell already mentioned is the law of how do you call it in English? Sorry, the one where you reflect upon things. I don't actually
The
know the
mirror,
name right. Sorry.
the mirror.
No, no, no. It's one moment. The moment, law of moment of reflection. This
Right.
is the name
Mm-hmm.
of it.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you do something, try to reflect. Why did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why did I choose that? Why did I choose to eat salad at lunch and not the burger? Why did I spoke with that person and not the other person? Why did I avoid the other person? Because we can also tend to avoid people we don't want to work, and this is another unconscious bias from what I can tell. If you are avoiding some people even at work or in your day-to-day life, then there might be some unconscious bias behind it, and you need to know what it is. What made you avoid that person? So I think
Absolutely.
we can start from this, and I'm looking for our next meeting, when we are going to discuss recruiting personality and training skills.
Absolutely. So I think this will also be kind of a continuation of today's topic, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to use our unconscious bias when we make recruiting decisions. But we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
look at how can we really look at personality and skill as a whole, and we're gonna share something that you could actually use in your recruiting process. So thank you so much for today. It was lovely having you back here live, and we look forward to the next episode. Thank you for tuning in. Look forward to see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye.